Welcome to part 1. In this section of training, we will be presenting the orientation and basic foundation of operating the Karambit. The Karambit can be traced from Sumatra to Malaysia and Java. The Karambit of Lombok, the island found between Bali and East Java, specifically the island of Sumbawa, is traditionally a larger or battlefield-sized Karambit and is much larger than its more personal-sized Javanese cousin. There's also another variation of the Karambit which comes from Madura Island, located northeast of Java, which is more curved and known as the Klarit. There are also many different shapes and designs of the Karambit, such as the Rajawali, or the bird head shape, and others which include protruding spurs used for tearing flesh in the heat of battle. The Karambit is also referred to as the Kuku Bima, literally translated to as the claw of Bima. Pre-12th century influence as a result of Hindus settling in Indonesian archipelago brought the Mahabharata, which was the great epic of the Brata dynasty, and the Ramayana, two major epics of India, to Java. Contained within the Mahabharata is the Bhagavad Gita, which is the single most important religious text of Hinduism. Bhima is a character from the Mahabharata. Also known as Kuku Hanuman, literally the claw of Hanuman, a character from the Ramayana. The Karambit, magical claw which protrudes from between the center of the hands of Bhima and Hanuman, has become the weapon of the traditional arts of the Indonesian archipelago, namely Pencak Silat. The combination of the original design of the tiger's claw, combined with the hand weapons of the ancient characters of the Mahabharata and the Ramayana, the Kuku Macan, Kuku Bhima, or Kuku Hanuman, has evolved into what is known in modern times as the Karambit. It is now recognized internationally as a traditional weapon of Indonesian Pencak Silat. So what exactly is a Karambit? As we mentioned earlier in the history part, in ancient times there was a character in an old story that was passed down through centuries of a monkey who had a little extra claw sticking out between his two fingers. In combination with that old story, plus the shape of the tiger claw itself, a Karambit was created to emulate the fierce power and strength and cutting ability of the claw of the tiger, as well as have this historical and religious element based on the story of Hanuman. What I've got in my hand here is a training Karambit. It's dull on both sides, and the tip has been dulled. It's made out of aluminum. It's lightweight. The finger is inserted in the front portion here, and it's basically held in such a way as to keep the edge and the tip forward. We'll get into a little bit later on that part. There are basically a couple of differences between the Karambit and Western or straight fixed blades or folding blades. For example, a fixed blade or folding blade, what we would call a straight edge, is operated in such a way that for every one arm movement, there's one cut. So whether you're going forehand or backhand, palm up or palm down, your movement, every time you move the arm in one direction, you get one cut. A little bit different with the Karambit. When you move the arm in one direction, you can get two cuts for one movement. I'll go a little slower. When it comes out, that's one, and turn, that's two. But the arm only moves one time. Two cuts for one motion. It can be operated palm down or palm up. There are many different sizes of Karambit. Another trainer here has a little bit nicer handle and gives me a little bit more reach. This was considered a battlefield Karambit back in ancient times. Extended fully, it gave you almost another foot reach with the finger in the hand in the battlefield if you needed it. The same principle applies. One arm movement generates two cuts. So basically, the difference between the two types of blade is one is a straight edge and one is curved. Before we get going, I'd like to review a little bit of terminology so that when we discuss certain techniques later on in the video, we'll all be on the same page and same sheet of music. First one I'd like to take is what's called juru, J-U-R-U. It's a type of movement made with the body, similar to a kata in karate, for example. where you do not have a training partner and there's no one in front of you, just moving in the air. That's considered a juru. A bua means the actual fruit of the movement. For example, if I could borrow Ben, I'd be doing a specific movement with his arm on his body. This would be considered a bua, where I'm applying a technique to a body. If I did that technique outside in the air, that's a juru. If I do it with a body, this is considered a bua. The next term is called harimau. Harimau literally translates to tiger, or tiger method, tiger system. That is when it's operated close to the ground. When you're moving and you have a 3-point or a 2-point stance, as you move, this type of style, this type of movement is harimau, generally attributed to any type of technique low to the ground in the length and the width of a tiger-like movement. While we're on the ground, if it's a pure 2-point stance or nearly sitting, this is anak harimau, means the son of the tiger, or a smaller, lower to the ground stance. Although there are many different types of karambits, as we've seen earlier, there are generally similar parts to each karambit. Much like a car, almost all cars have a steering wheel, most have brakes and gas pedals. Same thing with karambit. Even though there are different styles and different types and shapes of karambits, there are basic parts that are identical, and you'll find common throughout all of them. We're going to start at the bottom. This is obviously the handle where the finger goes through. This top part, if you look at where the thumb goes, this is a brake where when you extend forward, when the karambit moves forward, the brake catches the lower finger. So that's called brake. It gives you the lock on that extension. Up here. This is the back, or sometimes known as the spine. And obviously this is the front curve. Generally held low in front of the body with the tip and edge forward, you'll always have the curve facing up. So there's the front curve. This part is the front curve. And this part is the back curve. Obviously this is the tip. Okay, the handle has 2 parts. The base of the handle and the length of the handle. So when you grip it, your optimum position is to cover the entire length of the handle. But most of your operation is going to occur here at the base. Okay? So one more little usage for this brake at the top is your thumb can be placed on the top of it. So 2 positions are the finger brake, which is an extension, and on retraction, the thumb can be placed on the top. And we'll get into that in a second when we talk about grips. There are several grips in which the karambit can be held. One of the oldest ways, the ancient method, is the baby finger goes down and you grab the full length of the grip and you're fighting with the top edge and the tip forward. This was more like the claret, or the older battlefield style. Thumb could be to the side or thumb could be to the top. The modern method was later developed where the finger goes into the top and full grip around the length of the handle. The 2 positions with the blade low, or they call retracted, is the thumb can be on top, securing, using the brake to secure it to the hand. This is a very solid and a lot of friction in this type of grip, so it stays in your hand well, even if you're sweating. The other thumb position in this grip is thumb can be on the fingers as opposed to the top. So these 2 positions again are, the first one is on the brake, and the second one is thumb on the fingers. If you're extended, there are also 2 positions. One is the thumb ends up on the cam, or the turning part, or the thumb can end up on the fingers. I'm going to move it to the side here so you can see. The thumb can be on the ring, or the thumb can be on the fingers. There are advantages and disadvantages to each. However, we're going to be working predominantly with the thumb on the ring. Okay, so there are 2 basic positions. The first one is retracted, whether the thumb is on top or the thumb is on the side. And the second one is extended, whether the thumb is on the top or the thumb is on the side. There are also hand positions that play a very important role in how the Karambit is operated. These hand positions are as follows. The first one is palm down. Any strike or cut or thrust can be handled from the palm down position. The second of these is the palm up position. Same thing, slash or thrust can be executed from the palm up position. And usually from a ready position, it is in a vertical. So again, you have palm down, palm up, or in the vertical position. Just as a reminder, all these techniques we're going to get into and the handling and the operation of the Karambit, you always want to work with a trainer. It's always the case where whenever you're working with your training partner or you're training by yourself, to never use a real live cutting edge. Always use a trainer during the time when you're operating. And another point before we get into this is that the Karambit is very often referred to as the backup weapon. It's the last line of defense. In other words, you're on the battlefield, your sword gives out, your spear's gone, and you're engaged in this combative element, and you have nothing left. This is your backup tool. This is what's your last defense, last line of defense. It's carried as a companion, much like the wakizashi with the katana, or the dirk or dagger with the basket hilt, say, for example, in ancient Europe. So the Karambit, a personal defense tool, a backup tool, and again, only used for self-defense. There are different postures of the body that are used in conjunction with the grips and the hand positions. The first one is standing on a strong stance, what is called kuda kuda. Kuda kuda means a horse or a strong stance. So normally when we walk as humans, we step forward, opposite hand, opposite foot. You hardly ever see anybody walk down the street foot and hand together like this. Right, so when we walk, it's opposite foot, opposite hand. So the same thing applies in a natural position as you're walking. From where you start, lower your body a little bit and raise both hands. And that is your starting position, or what they call kuda kuda, the horse or strong stance. Notice that it's just as easy as walking and dropping your weight, going into a combative posture. The blade ends up being in your center line, the tip forward, and the edge down and away from your body. Both hands are up into your center. It's known as kuda kuda. Another basic position is if you end up dropping to the ground and you assume the harimau position, which is a three-point stance. You have the knee, you have the rear foot, and you have the front foot. In this three-point stance, known as the harimau, it's the same position as you were walking, except that you've lowered now even further, lower than the kuda kuda, to the harimau, where you keep the blade, same exact position in the center, edge forward, tip up in the middle. There is also another one, if you go a little bit further, called duduk. Duduk is to sit in a sitting posture. It's the same exact position. The blade is forward, the edge is down and away, and the tip is facing your center line. You always want to keep in mind to keep the edge and tip as far out from your body. You don't want to come in and cover your own hand. You want to keep it away from your body. So those positions again are from natural walking position, as you're walking forward, lower your weight into kuda kuda. One more elevation change down, you're in harimau, strong three-point kneeling stance. One more elevation change, you're down in duduk, or sitting posture, with the edge down and forward and away from your body. One of the most important elements to stances is that they are not static, they are not stationary. When you're in movement, again, as we walk naturally, nonchalantly, we find a position where we need to go into a combative posture. We lower the body weight so it's evenly distributed over, slightly forward, and we keep the edge and tip down and forward in front of our bodies. If we need to ambulate, if there's a forward motion, you can easily step into that position from where you were. Same thing if you need to go backwards. This is moving with the footwork from kuda kuda. If we go back to the kneeling, there are two different types of kneeling. Remember, we talked about the first one, which was the harimau, and the second one, which was ana-harimau, or the lower form of kneeling. Very similar to the Japanese seiza method, and I'll demonstrate that. Seiza kneeling, or in the Japanese tradition, is forward motion with the hips low to the ground. A little bit different in the Indonesian version. That is, from the harimau, your movement comes down with the knee. So the knee drops first, your weight stays forward, then you shift your weight to establish the secondary three-point stance. Same thing applies for if you're moving backwards. You keep the same weight distribution and you use the knee as a support as you come down. So again, the knee comes down first, your weight pulls forward, shift, so your other side equals. Then when you move down again, knee and up. Same thing applies to sitting posture. In the duduk, when you come down and you're changing, the second leg comes up and you change positions and positions again. Especially comes in handy if you have multiple attackers. Somebody behind you, you can easily switch position or come back again if you had to. One of the best forms of application, when you change elevation, you're now on the low line. The advantage of the harimau movement is that you're staying on the low line, which detracts from his ability to turn left or right on the high line. This gives you the advantage, moving, striking, and operating down at his low line. Again, this is known as harimau. One of the best training drills I found, which was passed down to me from my instructor, Pa Herman Sawanda, was when we were in Indonesia and he was explaining to build the strong tires. What he meant by that is a car can't go anywhere without tires. And the same thing applies to the human body. If you have legs which are insufficient to hold your weight or your movement or your speed, you need to build the strength in those legs to compensate for that additional force necessary. So one of the best drills that you can do is taking your either leg, left or right side, come behind your body as you place the foot, coming down to the ground, putting both cheeks right on the ground. Put your tail down, both feet make contact. Your hands are in front of your body. As you shift your weight up, lightly touch down on the ground with both feet. Same thing applies to the opposite side. Take your foot, come across, sit all the way down on the ground, shift your weight forward, come up lightly off the ground, and put your hands back in front. This strong horse stance, or kuda kuda, is what builds the strength in the leg. So again, when you do the movement, take the leg, turn behind, come down to the ground. When you come up, push forward, and then lightly turn and come down. Executed with the karambit, this is kept in the center of the body. So when the legs move, the blade comes out forward. So again, the legs move, the blade comes out forward. All together, as you come under, down and up, come down and up, keeping the blade and legs strong. There are three basic positions, postures of the karambit in the hand. One of them is retracted, where it's held in close to the body or close into the hand. Again, the finger position can be on the fingers or on the handle. The second one of these positions is extended, in which, again, the thumb can be on the handle or on the finger. The third one is in transition. Sometimes you're moving, and while it's moving, that's another position, in motion, whether it be vertical or horizontal. It's in motion. Okay, so, but basically the three changes are in position are close, retracted, extended, or in motion. Okay, I'm going to ask Ben to come out on the floor. What he's strapped up with here is Lameko training gear. I'm a strong supporter of this as an excellent training equipment for usage of both edge weapons training and karambit. These are available through Penung Guru Edgar Solite's family, and it's Lameko training gear. Hand protection and forearm protection. When you train with these types of tools, training tools, you should keep in mind that the body, you like your partner, he's your friend, you want to keep the body protected. So I suggest using some type of elbow pad in conjunction with the Lameko training gear, which is a wrist guard and a hand guard. And what we use this for is to practice the basic operation of the karambit. From this position, from the retracted position that we talked about, regardless of whether your thumb's on your finger or the thumb is on your handle, it doesn't matter, that's a type of grip, the retraction is the main point. This very first movement we call hacking, where we use the bottom or the edge of the blade. I'm going to change here from battlefield karambit to a smaller version just to give you an idea of how this works. Okay, so this blade, when it makes contact, it's just like you're chopping carrots on a board. You just come down and lightly touch the hand. So this is a hacking motion. So from your position up high, he's going to maintain a stationary posture. You're just going to come straight down onto the hand. So this gives you a reference field range so that you can work with the operation in a very simple movement to get familiar with contact. Okay? If he moves his arm a little bit more this way, he's exposing the forearm. The same thing applies. Even though it's a little closer to his body, you're still going down in a downward motion. The same thing if you end up on the elbow. Okay, make sure you're hitting on the pad. So these three strike points on the hand, on the forearm, or on the elbow, the movement is the same. You're just coming down, bouncing off. Imagine it as a little trampoline. You hit the trampoline and it bounces back. Strike and return, strike and return, strike and return. Another type of operation is known as slashing, in which case you have the edge of the karambit and you're slashing across. Remember the three hand postures we talked about, either palm up or palm down or vertical. Okay, those three positions can be operated with a slash. Palm up, palm down, vertical. If he changes position to the forearm, the same thing. Palm down, palm up, or vertical slash. And the same thing applies for the elbow. Palm up, palm down, or vertical slash. The third and final method of operation is using the tip, or for thrusting. So it's just like you're punching a bag or hitting a pad of some kind. You just push your fist forward and press the tip into the training equipment. Retract. You can either go vertically or palm down or palm up. If he changes positions, the same exact thing applies. Vertical, palm up, or palm down. The same thing on the elbow. Vertical, palm up, or palm down. The other position was, remember we talked about the extension. The same thing applies. If you are slashing with an extension, palm up, palm down, or vertical. The same thing applies to the hook. You can come in up, you can come in across, or you can come in across with the extended posture. So we've looked at both types of positions, where you're extended, where you're retracted. And there are, remember, three different types. They are hacking, slashing, or thrusting. Starting and ending operational postures. There are 7 starting and ending operational postures with the karambit. The first one is high. The second one, low. The third one, ready. All three of those positions, the blade, the edge, and the tip are forward away from the body. Notice the position of his second hand behind the blade, and the posture of his foot, opposite to the extension of the blade in natural walking position. The remaining 4 postures are on the high open side. Next is the low open side. Next, high closed side. And finally, the low closed side. Understanding the ranges of the karambit. There are basically only 2 ranges when you're engaging operation with a karambit. These are known as long and close. A little bit different from the standard straight edge weapons training, which involves long range, medium range, and close range. The karambit training is only divided into 2 sections, long and close. And here are the reasons why. If Brian extends the blade, I'm going to use his forearm as a reference. My distance from him where we cannot make contact with each other is considered long range. If I take one step or he takes one step forward, I'm within close range. This is the only other difference, because from close range, I can extend from close range and be able to reach extreme close quarters or a vital closer to his body. So simply by just extending, changing my posture and grip, I can go from close to extreme close in just staying in the same posture. So again, from long distance range, we cannot touch each other. Even extended, we can't reach each other. So when either one of us takes a step in, we're now at close range, close quarters, and with one small movement of changing from retracted to extended, I've changed my posture and have come to extreme close quarter range. So there are basically, again, only two postures when training with the Karambit: long range and close range. Basic training drill number 1. These techniques, which we'll be getting into, were derived from various styles of Pencak Silat, namely from West Java. We'll be working in 3 different main styles that were taught by Guru Besar Sawanda. One of the first ones, a village that we trained in called Chimandi village. There was a series of movements and they had numerical values, Satu, Dua, Tiga, in the order of which way they were taught. And we're going to take them a little bit out of order, but they're still applicable to our situation at either close or long range. So the first one we're going to take a look at is your hands will be coming up to protect your body. Remember we talked about that type of training called a juru, which was done in the air. Okay, so this particular juru, the hand comes up and the left hand comes down this way. So one hand comes up, the other hand comes down. Okay, that's all that is, a simple forward motion like that. This is the juru. So the foot would come out and the hand would come up like that. Okay, so if you put it all together, the foot comes out and the hand comes out at the same time the lower hand comes out to protect. So you have a palm down position on this side and a palm up position on this side. So we'll take a look at that again. When the foot moves, the hands move together. This is the juru in the air. It can be done on right and left side. Okay, when you do it with a partner, then it changes names. Now it's called a buah because we're working with our partner. Okay, so what he's going to do is he's going to move his hands towards the high line on a backhand movement. And all you're going to do is apply that same training drill movement by keeping the top hand palm down and the bottom hand palm up just at the elbow. Okay, back again. Same position, step forward. He comes in, palm down close to the body, palm up away from the body. This is a juru. Now, let's say we want to apply it with a karambit. We already know this position is retracted. If he happened to have a training tool in his hand and he is coming towards the high line, our application is contact going down and away from the body. Okay, so this motion again, same position as we did with the empty hand, except this hand comes up for protection. So we come in again, down and away from the body. This action of striking down, remember our first method of operation, just making contact with the training equipment. Back again. And one last time. Notice the foot position to provide support. Palm up above the elbow and the karambit down and away from your body. Basic training drill number 2. Again, in the Chimandi system, in Chimandi village, it's one of the first ones we learned. It's called Chimandi Satu, which means the very first one. So the first one is an outside motion, similar to the Filipino method of gunting. By the way, those words are the same in Bahasa Indonesian as it is in Tagalog. Gunting meaning scissors motion. So this outside hand comes up first, the back hand comes under, in a closed fist motion. You wipe, just like this is really itchy on your forearm, you wipe up, under, and this hand comes under your elbow. This is the basic training drill number 2, which is Chimandi Satu. Left hand comes up, at the same time the foot moves, and then followed by the opposite hand under, and wipe, and come under. Okay, again, I'm executing what they call a juru. It's just done in the air, no training partner, no training tools. Okay. With my training partner, I'm going to ask Brian to extend his arm for training. As he extends his arm, this outside hand comes forward. Remember, we're moving the foot and the hand at the same time. So the foot and hand come up, and then the bottom hand comes up under it and takes the position. Okay, so move that again. Hand and foot, and outside hand comes under. Now, if he was to hold a training tool in his hand, and I was working with the Karambit, assuming any posture, whether the thumb's on the top or thumb's on the finger, he thrusts towards the center. I do that same motion, and this time I'm drawing across on a slash. So I want to finish with a slash. Okay, so we'll do that again. Comes up, outside. This is drawing to a slash. Back again. 1, foot and hand. 2, the Karambit comes up, and finish with a slash. This is the buah, or working with a training partner. Before we continue, I need to bring up a small training point for reference of position on the human body. If I can ask Ben to hold his arms out straight in front of his body, there are 3 positions you can end up with when working or operating with the Karambit. The first one is on the inside. That means you're between the thumbs or inside the body. When you're operating inside the body like this, it's traditionally applied to Shabandar technique, which is usually entry, masuk, or entry from the inside. If I was to take one step to the outside, I'd end up on line, which is not exactly a great place to be, especially if he's got a weapon in his hand, but it's a little bit better than the inside, because on the inside, a good trained fighter, he's going to have a punch, which is available. He may have an elbow, which is available. He may have a headbutt, which is available. He may have a knee. He may even have a kick, all on the inside available to him, not someplace I want to be, because the same thing can happen on the other side. So if I take one step, I eliminate that whole side of possibilities. However, I end up on the side of a fist or a kick or a punch or a weapon in his hand. If I take one more step, I end up on the outside. Optimally, you want to be on the outside, because what happens here is you've negated that whole other side. You've negated what may be in his hand in front, and you get to control the body from the elbow all the way around the back, to the shoulders, to the opposite elbow, and to the hand. Quite a bit of area on the outside. When you're working on the outside, this is generally attributed to a style called chikalong, which is types of entries and techniques which are executed on the outside of the body. So again, looking from above, you can see that from fingertip all the way around the body to the other fingertip is quite a bit of space. It's a large area outside the body. However, all the action usually happens on the inside. So the trick is to get from inside safely to the outside. And we're going to look at that closely here in just a minute. Basic training drill number 3. In the first 2 drills, we took a look at a thrust to your center line, and then a backslash to the high line. This third part will be a front hand slash to the high line. So in order to prepare yourself for something like that could occur, from a system called Shabandar, which deals with the inside entries, you would bring your lead leg forward, bring the inside hand back, and the front hand forward. So again, as a juru, moving forward, shifting your weight forward, most of the weight's in your hand. Similar to as if you were pushing a car up a hill, is the same motion you will enter on the inside. Very forceful, very powerful strike on the inside. Okay, so again, the foot moves at the same time as the hand does, and the hands stay up in the middle. Okay, so if I ask my training partner to, with nothing in his hands, to come forward on the high line, I'll be moving in to his center. I'm located on the inside of his body. This is known as Shabandar. Okay, so again, this hand comes up and turns. I'm catching it on the inside and turning away. Okay, if he was to have a training tool in his hand and I'm working with a training Karambit, the same thing. I check that second hand with the Karambit as I protect. This is Shabandar. Basic training drill 4A. We're going to put all the pieces together here and take a look at how they flow as one fluid motion. Again, looking at the juru of this, the first strike came in the high line as a backhander. So remember, we used that chimande dalapan, which was the first one. We came up and had the second hand under. The second one the second drill was he thrust into your center line, and we used chimande satu, the very first one, to control and clear the center line. The very last one we worked on just before this was it came in on the high line on the inside, so we used a shabandar technique. Okay, so if we put all three together, the first one was outside, the second one was inside, the third one was inside. Okay, so we'll do that again. The first one again on the high line, outside, on the low line, outside, and the final one on the high line, inside. Working with our training partner now in buah form with empty hand is starting from the high line slash. He comes in, you're doing that same motion. He pulls back to center on the center line, come up, and he pulls back on the high line and come back. And we just repeat this motion over and over again. High line, middle line, high line on the inside, high line on the outside, middle line, and high line on the inside. Now, if he's working with a training tool and I'm working with the Karambit, the same thing. I'm paying close attention to that training pad. Okay, so as he comes in, 1, 2, 3. Back again. 1, 2, 3. One small piece I'd like to add to the previous drill, we'll call this basic training drill 4B, is that if you're working with your training partner and he's moving towards you on the high line, your hand comes up, work now towards bringing the hand down. The last element of this training is to drop your hand down. This gives you security in holding the arm, pushing up with the bottom hand, down with the top hand, so that you secure the movement. If it's coming in the center line using chimande satu, ends up in the same exact position. Palm up, palm down, pushing down. If we select our shabandar entry, the same thing. One hand comes down as the other hand comes up, securing it so it can't move forward. Okay? Once again, from the buah on the high line, you come in, turn the palm down for security as you secure the elbow and the wrist. If it's in the center line, the same exact position, and on the high line, same exact position. If he was to work with a training tool and I was to work with a training karambit, the first block would be, as we showed earlier, then slightly turn the blade down for security, locking it close to the body. If it comes into the center, the same posture with the slash and lock, and again on the shabandar, check and secure. Thank you for joining us on tape 1. Look forward to seeing you on tape 2. Additionally, we'd like to extend our sincere appreciation to the modern masters of edge weapons for their immense pool of knowledge from which this body of information was derived for self-defense application. Guru Dan Inosanto, Guru Besar Herman Sawanda, Bapak Suherman. Welcome to part 2. In this volume in the series, we will be addressing the intermediate operational and functionality of the Karambit. We mentioned this briefly in our earlier training. We're going to look at a little bit of the detail that goes into changing range and operating with the Karambit. One of these main important elements is changing elevation, going from a high position to a low position. And we talked about these 3 different postures. It was going from standing to going to kneeling, to going to low kneeling, to going to sitting. One point in tactical operation with the Karambit, very similar to a firearm. This is known as a red gun. It's an inert piece of molded plastic which is incapable of firing for demonstration purposes. Again, similar to operation of a firearm, in which case you may have the situation where you need to execute a tactical or a speed reload. The operation occurs up at about eye level. The same thing applies for the Karambit. When you're moving forward or backward or changing elevation, you want to keep the blade and hand up around face or eye level so you can see from your line of vision not only what's going around you, but also the blade in front of you. Very similar to operation of a firearm. One of the best ways to develop your mobility is to train with your partner in simultaneous movement forward and backward. We're going to combine some of the earlier training drills that we did prior and put them together using mobility. So this is our first mobility training drill. Now that we have a strong understanding of mobility, direction, and operational functionality of the Karambit, we're going to take all that and apply it to an element of training that we call takedowns, which we normally would do and can do with empty hand. It's also done with a Karambit. Disarming with the Karambit. There are some basic elements which we need to present here to clarify an understanding of disarming with the Karambit. When disarming, the thumb, which controls the connection of the handle of a potential weapon to the fingers, is in control, then you have control of it. If you don't have that control, then it's in control of you. It's kind of one of those old sayings. You control it or it controls you. So our primary objective is to control that dangerous part, which is the thumb. Without the thumb control, there's little or nothing the remainder of the fingers can do. They need the opposing digit for support.
Since 1984, I&I Sports has featured the largest selection of paintball equipment, martial arts supplies, boxing gear, and custom knives. And with discounts from 10 to 60% off, there's no reason to shop anywhere else. So stop by or call us today. Visit any of our 3 Southern California locations 7 days a week, with stores to serve you in West LA, City of Industry, and Carson, or call 310-715-6800. I&I Sports, we've got what you need.